Hey, Fujifilm fanboys! Did you know I'm a little bit of a Fuji fanboy myself? I have digital Fujifilm cameras since 2018 with the Fujifilm X-T-5. I've invested a huge amount of money in a complete new set of Fujifilm gear because I'm a wedding photographer now together with my wife. I've bought the great XT-5 and XH2, a whole set of new Fuji lenses alongside with the amazing 56 1.2. However, there is a massive problem that forces me not only to make this video, but also to sell all my gear. I know, this came out of nowhere and completely unexpected, and I'm sorry, and I really have my good reasons for doing so. And I will switch to... how can I say this without throwing up in my mouth? Sony. Hey guys, I hope you forgive me for the intro. I know Fuji users are always really chill guys, but there are always some gatekeepers and ones with too much brand loyalty. Don't get me wrong, the new Fujifilm camera bodies are really great, otherwise I wouldn't have spent almost 4K on them. The combination of modern technology with this somewhat analog feeling always appealed to me. Also, Fujifilm's heritage as an analog film company is somewhat important to me because I want to identify with the brand and the cameras I'm using.
Fujifilm.
On the other hand, there are brands like Sony, which are producing every possible electronic device imaginable, and then also have their own film studios, which produce movie hits like Morbius and Madame Web.
This is the worst!
So Sony as a camera brand is not as focused like Fuji, or Canon, or Nikon, or Olympus, or even Pentax. And yes, I know that the Sony camera division is made of ex-Minolta assets, so yeah, Minolta. And I wanted to have the best autofocusing performance on every camera, so there are only Sony or Canon. So why didn't I choose Canon? It's because I don't want to reward a company for the most anti-consumer decisions a camera company can make with their new lens policy. Also, a deciding factor was that the Canon is a frigging chonker. It's nearly as big as a Fujifilm GFX. I know there are also Nikon and Panasonic, but they are only ranked 3rd and 4th in autofocus testing ranking with most testers, so this time I wanted a full frame camera with the absolutely full performance in autofocus. Also, my priority has shifted since I started wedding photography from that the camera only has to be a fun and recreational tool to a hardcore tool that has to work 100% of the time. And here lies the tiny problem the current generation has. The current models are good for 99% of the things and situations you can encounter, but unfortunately I have encountered the 1% where it doesn't work. And I really need this 1% to work. And you are probably wondering right now, what the hell is this problem that is so big that he is selling all his stuff? Is it maybe because most German wedding registry offices are only one rack away from being a torture chamber and therefore as dark as possible with the shittiest light imaginable? Nope, I was fully aware that the APS-C high ISO performance is not as good as full frame, but it's now a good bonus that I have when I am switching to Sony. Okay, I will tell you, but first I have to tell you about my shooting style so that you will understand better. For my street photography and for the portraits I take, the models really have to move a lot. And I also use most of the time 24 to 35mm and standing right next to them while they are moving. To get the perfect shots, I really need a reliable AFC system that is dead on. Unfortunately, the AFC performance of the current generation is up close absolutely terrible, really to the point of unusable. You really can't get any predictable results of it. But the best is, I don't tell you, but I show you my findings. Okay, here's one of the most ordinary scenes you can imagine. An interior with a person who is moving really slowly towards you. The Fujifilm XT-5 with a 23 f1.4 at f2 against the A7 IV with a Sigma 24 to 72.8. And as you can see, if you get close to the camera simply can't keep up. And the distance is normal portrait distance. And these are the AFC settings of the Fuji, optimal for things moving at a uniform speed towards the camera. And here is zone tracking if you believe that eye autofocus isn't up to the task. Zone tracking is recommended by most of the wedding photographers out there who are working with Fuji professionally. And like before, at a certain proximity the algorithm simply can't compensate for the speed. And to be fair, Sony also struggles with the last shot. And unfortunately, zone tracking is even worse than eye autofocus. The next test is with box tracking. My guess is that the problem isn't with the eye autofocus or the focus modes, but with the AFC algorithm itself, which doesn't refreshes quickly enough to compensate for the distance change. So this problem only occurs when someone is walking towards the camera. So if you are shooting a portrait and the person is not moving, there is literally no problem. And box tracking is even worse than zone and eye tracking. And the Sony has a perfect score. The next test is to show you that this is not a lens problem. I also tested it with the 33mm 1.4. Blah 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 blah, but then you just reduced aperture from what depth of field. Nope. That doesn't work well indoors because there's usually too little light for that. And yeah, did I mention that the A7 IV is not even Sony's latest AFC algorithm? And like the first test, half of the shots are out of focus, and Sony again with the perfect score. This is the fifth and the last test with the 56 1.2, Fuji's finest and also slowest lens. And yeah, it's the new version. I also found a somewhat workaround. These shots are in 5 FPS, and if you crank it up to 15, the maximum for the XT5 and the XH2, you can be lucky and get a better score. But the result of this test, most of the pictures from Fuji are out of focus and Sony got the perfect score. So if you have a new X camera, feel free to try it out for yourself. I think these 5 tests are enough to bring you closer to the problem I have. It doesn't affect everyone, but one should already be aware of the problem, especially if you're wanting to switch systems. If I known that beforehand, I would have chosen differently and gone straight to Sony. But that's it for this video for now. We'll sure see each other again in the next one, so don't forget to subscribe if you want more videos about problems no one else reports. Cheers!